All right, we are live. I see in the chat somebody saying Scott was finishing his hot chicken. He got busted.
I actually had some
Scott's
earlier.
never finished with hot chicken.
Hot chicken.
I had that.
Gum.
Swear to God, not 20 minutes ago, I was eating hot chicken, or 30 minutes ago.
But you got to know, when I met Scott in Nashville, I went to pick up some car parts. We had to go to hot chicken.
Yeah, man.
Of course. Of course.
Well, Greg
all right.
it.
I'm super stoked to have you guys back. You know, I haven't had you two on the channel for a while. It's like,
it's been a while.
For those who are obviously coming from your giant community and didn't realize that, I actually go back with these guys a little bit.
Yes,
Scott.
You think?
I think I interviewed you, Scott. Might have been 2018.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and you're the one that connected us all together for the behavior panel.
That's right. Yep. Hey,
well, yeah,
have you gotten a ticket to live event yet?
I don't know that I can make that. It's extremely unlikely because unfortunately it's during my birthday and anniversary, and I want to survive the marriage. So
yeah, we're with you, but you know you're our guest, so yeah.
My anniversary is 2 days after my birthday, so I'm kind of like, oh man. Anyway, and
your
event's literally right on that, the 8th and the 10th. So
that's funny.
Dang it!
Damn it! Yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, we'll miss you because you're the fifth Beatle, as we say. As you
well, thank you. I need to pull these quotes and then just put it out there as part of the preview because people.
I don't think we're really the Beatles. I think we're more like, I don't know what band I would associate us with. One that probably is not so grand.
No, Beatles are like a Harley. We're like a moped band.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not the Sex Pistols then?
Led Zeppelin.
No, we're the garage band from Columbus, Georgia, somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
but you're the fifth one. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's cruel. That's just cruel, Elizabeth McCarthy. You know you're wrong.
Harsh.
You know you're wrong.
That's harsh.
Okay? Now you can leave now. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. That is mean.
Did we tell you we like you, Elizabeth? You fit right in our crowd.
Once upon a time. For today's show, okay, we're going to do a little bit of analysis and talking about Amber Heard because we can't not talk about her, but I'm wanting to look into Evan Rachel Wood and the Marilyn Manson situation. And I feel like there's not been a lot done out there. I've actually recorded a video with Gavin on Evan Rachel Wood and her View interview. And I wanted to take a peek at it here as well. Got a couple experts. And the cool thing about Evan Rachel Wood, and I was just discussing it with Greg, or not cool, is she's no Amber Heard. Amber Heard is, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, she feels like remedial education for body language. I was watching you guys earlier, and I was just thinking to myself, isn't she convenient? You could just literally say, oh, well, there's contempt there, but then there's disdain, as Mark is pointing out. It's like she's the whole collection of every emotions. If Mark, Scott, you wanted to write another book, you could probably write the entire book with just Amber Heard for all expressions.
Easily.
Am I wrong?
Easily.
Oh, yeah. You could do a whole book on micro expressions for her easily. That'd be easy. Yeah.
And that would be in 10 minutes of her testimony.
Yeah.
Well, but they're poorly done at times too. Yeah.
It is
poorly done at times. Yeah. I think what we see there, my opinion of her, is she's probably mean to people beneath her station or whatever she perceives it to be. That would be my guess in dealing with a person who has all that in their face, because you can't do that to average people. If I look at you all the time like this, then you feel negative toward me and you don't want to be around me and hang out. It's kind of the way people are. So. And maybe she isn't.
Maybe not. I really feel, especially when I look at her sister, especially when you see it, her sister has the angriest face. Her RBR is really, really, really harsh. I mean, in the courtroom, just the way she's looking up and walking out. And I don't know. I feel for her. I feel like they had a lot of problems growing up. Amber came out on the more aggressive side, and I think Whitney kind of came out on the poor side. But let's go look at Evan Rachel Wood. I, again, enjoy this in the sense that she's, I don't know, I feel like she's, 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 I much, much harder, I feel, to read or interpret. But now I know you guys
She's more
will be like,
contained. Yeah, a lot more contained. Yep.
you guys be like, oh yeah, that's obvious. So this is her appearance on The View. She's discussing her relationship with Marilyn Manson, but she's also on there because she got some legislation passed. And I think it's something called the Phoenix Bill or something of that sort. And the principle of it is that the statute of limitations are extended further out for victims of, well, we're on YouTube, so I'll say SA and DV because we can't say things out loud that are in the English language and in court cases. But anyway, welcome to YouTube. So that's the other reason that she's on here. Marilyn Manson has a lawsuit against her as of March or so, and I think that's also an impetus to have her on The View. And well, where else are you going to start out? So
They haven't called me recently, so.
You know what? If you ever want to watch the best View appearances, I would say look up a channel called I'm Not Norm and watch Norm Macdonald toy with everybody from Barbara Wawa on down the line on The View, because he's just a classic.
That was good.
That's funny.
Okay. In 2006, when you were just 18 and he was 37. Okay. You say it started off as a friendship, but then you say that he started grooming you, which we often hear that term.
Sorry, I got too far ahead.
So you first met Marilyn Manson, who's, by the way, his real name is Brian Warner.
Brian Hugh Warner.
Brian Hugh Warner. Okay. In 2006, when you were just 18 and he was 37. Okay. You say it started off as a friendship, but then you say that he started grooming you, which we often hear that term amongst abusers.
Yes.
Now, you guys want me to stop any point? Because I feel like there's already a little bit in there. Like when she said his name, I felt like there was something there.
Well, I see a couple things. I mean, nothing big. I did see her starting to move her hands, and she doesn't do a lot of that. We're going to see a pattern in her that she moves to release nervous energy. Remember, we talk about adapters. People will call them comforters or whatever, but any of the adapters can become comforters as a way to release nervous energy. And she's been in front of enough people clearly that she's comfortable with what she's saying. She's not acting. I mean, clearly we're all acting a little bit when we're in front of people, but see her start to adapt with her hands and then watch that little sway. That's just nervous energy going somewhere. First thing I see.
I saw lip compression when, or stress mouth when his name was brought up. So, and this guy, Marilyn Manson, in 2007, I went to the O2 Dome in London and saw, for the Led Zeppelin show. And he sat behind us, a couple rows behind us, and kept getting in trouble for trying to smoke during the show.
Marilyn did?
He's a bad kid. He's a bad kid. Is that what he is?
Okay.
He's a rebel.
He's not known as, touring with Lawrence Welk. I will say that.
Well, there's a lot of ways to be cool. And when you're a little kid, there's always Billy the kid who eats paste because he thinks it's cool. Just a different way of being different and differentiating yourself.
When I was in the music business and I was a record producer, there's a guy named Frank Kalari, and he was my manager. And at the same time, he was Marilyn Manson's manager as well. And one day where I was over at Frank's house, and he had this big box of T-shirts with like the devil on it and all these, what is it, pentagram? Is what they have? And I was like,
so.
What the hell's all this, man? He said, oh, it's a guy I'm working with. I said, what's up with he said, oh, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's not real. I said, dude, that's real. Those, whether you think it's a joke or not, you can't have that in your house. Don't have that in your house.
Hey, Scott, why don't you do why don't you do a bluegrass version with him? That would have been
that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be into it too.
Well, you know what you could do? Business. Let me see. He did Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. That's put him on the map. See, that was a cover. So you could do a cover of the cover of the cover and get really meta.
Man, some of his records are really good. Those first few albums, man, they're really good. I mean, they're for what they are. They're awesome albums. They're great recordings.
Well, he's in the tradition of Alice Cooper.
Yeah,
and Alice Cooper is a good artist. Well, now what's funny about it, and I'm not trying
Yeah,
to
Alice
segue too
Cooper's
much,
awesome.
but Alice Cooper is a teetotaler. He doesn't drink.
Yeah.
He doesn't smoke. Complete clean living. Very ironic that he's in a band with Johnny Depp, because Johnny Depp, again, we just heard that he does have some drug habits, and he's definitely a big time smoker and drinker and everything else. But it's a
Alice
weird
Cooper,
parallel.
Alice Cooper's hilarious. He's supposed to be really, I haven't ever met him, but I really want to meet him because he's supposed to be really, really funny. He used to hang out with Groucho Marx, and Groucho was an old guy.
Wow.
Alice Cooper met him, and they used to hang out all the time. He's supposed to be a great guy. He's supposed to be an awesome golfer. I don't golf, but everybody says he's a great golfer.
He lives on the
And
golf
just-
course in
Yeah, he's just
Arizona.
supposed to be the greatest guy to hang out with. Everybody loves him. Everybody loves him.
Theater.
Yeah. Yeah, he's supposed to be a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
Also very religious. Surprisingly, he's a very religious guy too. So you never know with people. You know who's another teetotaler? Doesn't do drugs, doesn't do
Simmons.
any other.
Gene Simmons, I heard.
Correct. So go
Gene
figure.
Simmons.
And then
Yeah.
I'll throw another
Yeah,
one
Gene
in there.
Simmons.
Ted Nugent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Knew that.
Yeah, he's always been that way.
And Ted Nugent is a funny one because he's actually talked about how he didn't know what everybody was doing around him. He was like, they're all doing this stuff. I don't
Yeah.
even know what it is. All right, so let's go on with her.
From the abused, basically. So I'm curious, what drew you to him in the first place, and tell us how the grooming worked.
Well, in the first place, I was not drawn to him. He was drawn to me.
I see.
He approached me under the guise of work, false promises. And that is part of the grooming process. He was grooming me the second he said hello. Because grooming is when you present a false persona to somebody and you tell them lies to lure them into a false sense of security so that they become vulnerable around you. They start opening up, they start giving up their secrets and vulnerabilities. And so you're mining information. Yeah. You know, it's the epitome of a wolf in sheep's clothing. And once they have the information, once they know that you feel safe, they know that the manipulation can start. So that's part of the grooming process.
They start.
Now, that part right there, I found really interesting. The smile. And I'm just throwing stuff out there because I don't know anything. And that's why I have you guys here. It almost seemed like she was taking on the role that she was describing.
Scott, you want to jump first?
Yeah. Well, you mean when it started? Because when you have somebody
When it
that's
started-
famous,
Go ahead.
when there's somebody famous and you're starting to hang around them, if you haven't done that very often, you want to make sure that person likes you, because this may be the first time you've ever been around somebody who's famous, so you start acting like they think you should act, or you start doing things and saying things. You're too nice. You're too, can I get this? Can I get that? You smile too much. And so you start following that role of that person is the dominant role in that 99.9% of the time. Every now and then you'll see an outlier who isn't like, they just don't care, or they don't like that artist. But most of the time you'll see the person who's not been around famous people very often. They just, Greg and I talk about it all the time. They just fall right into the little person that they want you to think they are, so that they know you think they're the coolest, that whoever the famous person is really, really cool and you like them. So it's easy to manipulate people like that when in that situation, because what you do is what they'll do is the people who've gone sideways is they'll just swamp this person with love and nice things to say and being really nice, and all this oxytocin's firing off in your head, off in your brain. So you form this connection with them, right? And then they start cutting off the praise of you and telling you how wonderful you are, so they'll ignore you and something. So your brain goes, we need to get some more of that oxytocin, man. Let's get over there. Hey, what are you doing? So you start following that person, and then they cut it off completely and they just throw out little bits of it, and you follow along trying to catch every little piece of it that you can.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd point out. When we just talk about body language, if you notice, she's moving, she's swaying. Now, what's she nervous about? This is what Scott and I always say. We can't tell you what she's nervous about. We can tell you she's nervous. Is she nervous because she's on The View? Is she nervous because of something? She's also holding something in her hand. I think it's a napkin or some kind of a tissue. She's holding that pretty tight. So I look at that to say, why is she doing that? And anybody who watches us knows why is what I care about more than the actual thing. I'm looking for a deviation, looking for change. One other thing to point out, you don't have to be friendly in the beginning to make this work. If you go back and you look at Manson or you look at any cloistered environment, if you want a really good study of how simple humans are in captivity, captivity doesn't mean I got you locked up, by the way. It simply means I isolate you from other people. I wrote in my very first book a chapter called Are You in Love or Captivity? About, you meet some brilliant person you think is beautiful and wonderful, and you take them and you isolate them from all their friends. And the only input they get is from you. Whatever reward they're getting is from you. Then they start to emulate whatever it is you want to do. And Eric, you and I happen to be products of one of those things. We called it basic training. And in basic training, they put us in a negative environment and they wake us up in the middle of the night. They do all kinds of stuff to us. They made us eat garbage for food, made us eat fast. And then they rewarded, if you started moving and talking and acting like a soldier, you get rewarded. That's its own form of re-education. And sometimes these people are not even doing it. Scott and I have talked about this many times together. When you get really famous and you can't walk out on the street, your inputs get limited and they start coming from only a handful of people around you. And it changes who you are because you're not who you think you are. You're who other people think you are typically. So
aren't you
And he's not talking about we think we're famous or anything like that. We're talking about people who are famous. Those persons.
Nothing famous here.
Oh, you're pretty famous, Scott. I mean, you were just describing me. I'm going to radio. I'm trying to act cool. I'm trying to be everything. I'm like, oh my God, Scott Rouse is here. Maybe he'll put the chicken down. What am I going to do? I mean, good God.
You're going to wait on me.
When we talk about those guys, we're talking about, though, because Scott's known a lot of music people who get famous early. And then what happens? They, it's not like we don't have that issue. We're not famous. We're hardworking on YouTube to be fun. And that's about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, when
and
you're
just say hi to my
Bootsy.
parents and stuff. That's all. Oh yeah.
Hi,
Bootsy
Scott's
Collins
mom and
is
dad.
the greatest, man. Yeah. Bootsy Collins is the greatest. He's the sweetest guy in the whole wide world. The first time I met him was in Memphis at this, what was the place? He was playing in Memphis and he called and said, look, I'm gonna be in Memphis. Why don't you come to the show? And I'd never met him before, but when I was in high school, I wrote him a letter every day. He and this guy named Roger Troutman. I'd send one to Roger Troutman. I'd send one to Bootsy Collins. He never got him. But I sent one to him every day, and now I was going to get to meet him, right? So it's Bootsy Collins. He's that guy with the star glasses. That's he's a bass player, and he was in Parliament, and he has his own thing, Bootsy's Rubber Band. He's he's on my Mount Rushmore of the coolest people in the world. He's on that. He's right in the middle of it with the star glasses on. And so I went to meet him, and I hadn't seen him before in person. So when we walked in, the security people brought us in. They said, "Oh, Scott's his Bootsy," and he was just standing there. And I figured he'd be up in the corner of the room and like fly down and like, "Hey," and he was just the sweetest guy in the whole wide world. To this day, when he talks to me, it's right there in the palm of his hand. It's like I'm telling you about these other people, but I've not been able to get out of it. And it's just because I still think he's the coolest guy in the world. I love that guy. Everybody loves that guy.
And it doesn't have to be someone that famous. It just has to be someone you perceive as having that much value. They don't have to be famous.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, or chat, I've got so many complaints. Too many digressions. Sorry. Welcome to the show. It's a hangout. However, I do want to put it out there that I did say we will answer your questions, or specifically these guys will. I'm here. So, start, sending questions. I won't be able to get to everything, but we will definitely cover them. What did you see in terms of, we were talking about, essentially gaslighting is what you were describing, in my opinion, Scott, when you're saying, give a little, and then, it's a cut it off. And by the way, you I would almost argue that that's a natural process that sort of happens even in relationships, and it's not intentional per se.
Right.
But if you're love bombing all the time, that's just creepy. I mean, when a couple becomes a couple, it's like, they don't say I love you quite as often. They don't do the flowers quite as often. And it's a surprise when they do, because there is, they both have to work at it a little bit. It's like, if you don't have to work at something, then you generally lose interest in it. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah,
it's a dog.
I would also say if you watch the two of us describing that process, we look a lot like she does in describing the process, because she's working in concepts. So she's thinking through it. She's moving her hands as she thinks through the process. So she's not talking about her relationship specifically. She's talking conceptually. So you see some of that in her body language as well.
Yeah, she seems to go conceptual a lot, and that is kind of frustrating in a way, in terms of like trying to figure out what's going on or not.
It's why we get frustrated with questioning all the time, Eric, because we can't control the question, and we would ask a different question and get a different outcome. It's frustrating at times to watch.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm speaking actually on that. So another digression. I think it's Savannah Guthrie who interviewed Amber Heard, did a pretty solid job with some incisive questions.
Oh yeah, I thought our questions were reasonably good. Her body language put pressure in the right places, because if you were just there gushing over Amber Heard and you didn't go after her and say, are you lying or is he lying, and put her on the, pair her options for what to answer, then she could go anywhere she wants. So I thought she did a pretty good job there. Yeah.
How about you, Scott?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just got this meeting and I'm having to. I get on here and they're asking me questions, and I've got to get one thing. 1 second.
That's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry, but I apologize. It's so rude, man. But if I didn't do that, there's a lot of stuff that happens if I don't get that done real quick.
No worries.
Sorry,
no
man.
worries.
Okay.
All right. So to continue a little bit more on this.
Start using the information against you.
Exactly. And then later on, the information comes back. Yes.
Yeah. Now, when you were 19, you agreed to appear in his music video for his song, I think it's called Heart-Shaped Glasses. And you allege that he gave you a lot of drugs and alcohol. Again, you were only 19. And then had you do things in the video that you never agreed to, including having sex with him on film. You say that he essentially raped you on camera. His lawyer now says that's not true, saying it was only simulated sex and that you were fully coherent and engaged in the shoot, from planning to editing even.
She's giving reactions there. Do you want me to keep it going, or do you want to?
That's good. This is probably good stuff. We can go from here.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things from me. Go ahead. Go. You go, Scott.
You go for it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. We see her chin coming out and coming up, and she's almost cocky about that. Because you're in the video and she's talking, and so I think she at the time was under the impression, which she's pretty, but at the time she was good enough to be the model or the person in the video. I think maybe at the time she was really proud of that, which she should have been, I guess, when you're in that situation. And then a lot of the agreement with the eyes closed and all that, I think she agrees with a lot of that, but at the same time, I think we're seeing a little bit of anger in there when she's doing it. She's gritting her teeth, and you can see her mouth is closed, but her chin comes out a little bit at that point. So I think I would be under the impression that that's her way of saying I'm angry at that situation, or the attorney and him for saying that about me because it wasn't true, or that I don't, who knows? I don't know if it was or not, but that's the impression I got with that. Greg, what did you get?
Yeah. So for me, the only thing is there's a deviation from her telling her own story to listening to someone read her story. And if you watch her, she does her eyes closed. She's doing some odd movement. Doesn't mean that anything is wrong with the story at all. But this is iterative storytelling. And you always hear me say, by iterative, I mean, I want you to ask me a question. I'll give you a piece of data. I'll redirect the next statement so that I can give you the piece of data I want. And we see some of this in what she's doing. Does it mean she's lying? Not at all. It just means there's a way she wants the data pushed out. And when this woman's reading, if you watch her, it doesn't look like she does when she's speaking. But we're all uncomfortable hearing our own words at times. So there's no smoking gun here to say she's lying. The other thing is to remember there's one place where she gets her chin up and indignant when she says, you volunteered to do this on stage, and she puts her chin out. And then you see a smirk when she says his lawyers have said. So she's got a story in her mind she wants delivered, and she's going to fight back against the other piece. You can see it in the body language. You can see her rise up a little bit against it. And it's just a deviation from what we saw when she's telling you something conceptually. That's all I notice.
Okay, I saw the super chat, and it's like, okay, good point. I will fix this just for you, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
That's hilarious.
I respond to cash. No, thank you very much. All right, so let's go back over. Let's see.
Only simulated sex, and that you were fully coherent and engaged in the shoot from planning to editing even. Manson says he did not have sex with you on that set. Can you tell us, how did this video shoot affect you, and how do you respond to both his denial and his lawyer's denial?
Well, we did not have sex on set.
I heard a grunt. There's something there.
Love that throat protection and that adapting, whether it's because she's uncomfortable with the characterization or there's something more to it. You heard when she said they talked about sex, she did disapproval with her lips.
Mhm.
So you could see it building up and coming out. She's not swaying now. So she's paying attention to the story, but she guards that neck and doesn't adapt her. She's uncomfortable with that. And look at her eye contact. She's not in eye contact with her. She's down left, paying attention to whatever's going on in her head is what she's thinking through there.
I think you're right. I think she's coming up with what she's going to say. She's structuring her answer at that point. Not that I don't think she knew that was going to be asked, because that's why she was there. But I think she's a little bit. Obviously, it bothers her because of the adapter. But I think she's thinking about the answer, how she's going to structure that, where she's going to start at that point.
And guys, this is a good one for us to always point out to you. When I say a person's in their head and thinking about what to say, it doesn't mean they're lying. But if they go there only when there's a hard question, you should pay attention.
Good point. All right.
I was raped on set. It's a difference. And when you're inebriated like that, you can't consent, especially as a minor.
Right.
I think it contradicts what he said.
There's a lot. Nice little cluster here.
Yep.
Actually, as a minor.
Right.
I think it contradicts what he said in 2007. I think you should go back and read his interviews and see how he talked about the video then. And, these people very often tell on themselves. I don't even really have to say anything.
What did he say then?
He said, oh, it does look real, doesn't it? Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
Mhm.
I think that happened. I mean, it looks to me like she's telling the truth. I don't know if it happened or not. I take that back. But I think she's being honest there. I think she believes that happened at that point, because we see all the things that tell us that that's smooth. That was really smooth. And you could tell it was affecting her emotionally. She's feeling, and Joe Navarro always talks about psychological discomfort. And that's what we're seeing there, is psychological discomfort. A lot of the shoulder shrugging, all that happening. But that's because she's like, it's going over things like that. If that's happened to you, it's kind of tough to talk about it from my understanding of it. So I think that's the reason for all the shoulder shrugs. She's feeling, it makes her feel weak. You know what I mean? It makes her puts her back in that position of having someone being the dominant person and in control of stuff. Maybe she's embarrassed that happened, because she's like, I believe that's what the shoulder shrugs are about, the real quick ones.
Well, listen to her words. Her words don't say it didn't happen and I did not engage in sex with him on stage. That's not what she says. She says, I was inebriated, I was underage, I couldn't consent, therefore it's rape. That's what she says out loud. And if that's the case, she's going to have some discomfort with how that's perceived. And you can see some discomfort, but to Scott's point, her messaging is all together. It's congruent. Now, how that's perceived is a different story. You see her raise her brow when she's wanting you to believe her, and she actually bounces in the chair, and she does lip compressions a couple of times. Lip compressions, when we say it means withheld things, often it's withheld emotion. I'm not going to tell you how I feel. Maybe I feel like I shouldn't have participated, but I should also not be treated like I was doing something because I had free will. That's what I heard there. This is the thing, guys, where we always say there's no such thing as body language without words, without spoken language. All this stuff goes together. It's polygraph. It's many, many sine waves we're watching.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is why I feel, looking at this, that it is not completely clear what was going on. Like what you're saying, and I don't know. I want to see more videos, because I want to dig a little deeper. I don't know in terms of whether this was a full-blown assault or if this is possibly a regret. He gave her a lot of drugs. I believe that happened. Okay. I believe that, he's known for doing a lot of drugs. He's known for doing drugs with Johnny Depp. It's not, there's nothing hidden there.
Yeah, and
what
don't take what I'm saying as she's, I signed up. That's not what I hear. What I hear is I couldn't possibly have made a conscious decision. Number one, I was underage, which I'm not sure she's underage.
She
I
was
don't
19.
know that. Yeah, I'm not sure she's underage. But the second part is I was inebriated. So those are two disqualifiers from whether she participated or not that give her this, look, I'm underage. So there's certainly a part of her that's probably thinking, well, I'm going to be judged based on, and you can see some of that.
Right. And a lot of people are lighting up the chat because this is a very controversial case.
Of course it is.
Which is
It's
part of why
horrible
I'm
thing.
steering
Yeah.
into it because I don't want to be doing the Amber Heard Johnny Depp show forever.
Yeah, neither do we.
Well, I thought I was already going to be. I mean, like I said, I recorded a video about this, and I thought, okay, well, that's going to be next. And then, we had Elaine come out. I said, okay, so her lawyer's doing the little tour.
Yeah.
And did you guys cover that at all? Elaine's little tour?
No.
Okay.
No, this one's going to be hard because even when she says that, then you're going to get people who are saying, well, now you're victim blaming. No, I think what you have to be aware of is anytime a person is going to give you anything that qualifies their statement, they expect a barrage of something coming at them, and rightfully so. I mean, this is going to be a he said, she said story, and somewhere in the middle is usually where it's at. Now, that doesn't mean that it's closer to his truth or her truth, but somewhere in between those two is usually where you find the facts.
Right. And by the way, that's the other factor somebody's pointing out. It's true. While Marilyn Manson's a friend of Johnny Depp, Evan and Rachel Wood is a friend of Amber Heard.
Interesting.
So you've got, these parallels.
Did not know that. Yep.
Yeah. So it has made a huge, huge difference. And honestly, I feel like the whole Marilyn Manson situation is interesting because unlike Johnny Depp, who's a Disney pirate, for God's sake, I mean, he's known as a beloved character. I mean, if he's not that, he's Edward Scissorhands, which is a very funny thing that Amber Heard brought up for whatever reason. That was a perfect non sequitur. But Marilyn Manson, if you say, oh, such and such did this evil act, and then you say it's Marilyn Manson, you go, okay. Scott goes, well, yeah, I saw his merch.
His t-shirts had pentagrams.
Yeah. He's telegraphing.
Yeah, I was thinking if you're sitting in front of an audience, you're sitting in front of a jury and you're Johnny Depp and you've been, a lot of these kids have watched Willy Wonka and all this kind of stuff, whatever. You think that's Willy Wonka. When you see this guy, you think that's Marilyn Manson. And he probably is not going to take his makeup off to come to court unless they force him to. So that doesn't help. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
then
he
he's going to look like
anymore.
I think he does.
Oh, Marilyn, Brian or whatever, Brian Warner. Yeah, I'm not even sure. Scott's got his phone going up.
Yeah, so it's just.
Let me get a couple of super chats here real quickly. We're the Kinks.
Hey, that's a big compliment to me.
It's a good band.
Well, yeah, one of my favorites.
And we have not discussed the jury, dude. I don't know if you guys saw that. There's the second member of it, or okay.
I haven't seen. I saw the first one. I haven't seen the second one.
Well, yeah, about a week or so ago. No, it's 2 weeks ago now, I guess. We're in Amber Heard time. But anyway, a juror supposedly came out on TikTok, and it's kind of been disproven. I did do a statement analysis with Peter Hyatt. He thought it sounded real going by the piece of transcript that we had. But if you take all the elements there, it probably was false. So Good Morning America came out with a juror today, this afternoon. And I'm going to lean in and say that probably really is a jury member because Good Morning America has a bit more responsibility being part of Disney and all that to, at least, prove it out, or hopefully they proved it. Okay. What was your jury number? What was this? Where were you? Blah, blah, blah. And they probably have somebody in the courtroom who could verify. Is that them? But the person's still unidentified, so we can't be completely sure.
Yeah, I'm always careful. What we try to do is when we find these guys, there's enough footage that we know they're tied to something. And, the last thing we want to do is go watch Bob, the guy, say, look, he's full of it. And then we find out, yeah, of course he's full of it because he wasn't even there. Because we're reading what we get to see. We don't control the interview. When we control the interview, it's a different outcome.
Yeah, and you guys really never do. Well, no, not never, because you did get to do that with Candace and
Yep.
her
And
husband.
Dawn.
And
Dawn, thank you. I forgot.
Well, Summer was missing. Yesterday was a 1-year anniversary of that, and there's still no
Oh.
resolution there. So unfortunate for that poor little girl.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that in a minute because that's interesting. Whatever you can reveal about the mechanics in the background, you know, how that came about and things, that would be kind of a fascinating story. Ari Jacob, hey guys, you're the best band for my kind of entertainment. Keep it up. Ari Jacob, I actually
Thank
had
you.
her on Laid Back News. Did
Oh,
an
neat.
interview with her. Her life has been completely ruined and turned upside down by Taylor Lorenz, the infamous, notorious Washington Post reporter, who's also gone after LawTube, and Alita, a friend of mine who's Legal Bites. But what's ironic is she did her editor did a stealth edit, and they may get in more trouble over that silly stealth edit than turning Ari's life upside down.
Jeez. Sorry.
But Ari has a defamation suit against the New York Times right now. And
Hi, Michelle.
according to Barnes, it's the strongest suit he's ever seen against the NYT.
Oh gosh, Barnes is on it. Look out, man.
He's not her lawyer, but he knows the suit. He's very, very pleased
Oh,
with it.
okay. All
And
right.
Michelle okay, I think that's a Salty Cracker fan. That's where I first remember seeing Ree, but I don't know. I did excellent EB. Thank
Ree.
you. That's Elaine Bredhoff, Amber Heard's lawyer. Who, while you guys didn't cover her, did you watch that?
Yeah, we paid attention to her, of course, and how some of her questions worked, but we were so tightly tied on Johnny Depp himself, because remember, when she was doing most of that in the beginning, we were after trying to get as much information as we could out. So yeah, we didn't spend as much time on lawyers. Although, you know, the second set of questioning was a little more entertaining. We probably could spend time on it. The problem is we didn't want to be on the air for 2.5 hours on each of these clips. We already were doing some long ones. And you also have to realize, I'm not a real fan of pop culture, and I have to cut these videos up. Scott called me and asked me if I needed counseling when I was done watching 20 hours of this garbage. So.
Oh man, yeah. My question was, how do you stop the puking after that? 9 hours in, it's
just
like,
so
good
bad.
Lord,
It was
man.
well, you know, it's like a tornado hit I don't know. It's pretty awful.
Well,
Yeah.
I meant afterward, the media tour, when she went on Today's Show and
We
CBS
didn't
this morning.
watch it.
Okay.
I haven't. No, I tried to turn off and try to get away from that case. Now we had a good murder trial set for this week, and then
Oh,
Yeah, Greg's got to get back into his murders and kidnappings and stuff, so he'll feel back to normal. Go back home.
it's
for a
like,
minute.
okay, just an ordinary murder would be nice for a change.
He
Are
actually
you doing
said
the
that. You know what we
Daybells?
need, man. We haven't done them
Are you-
yet. Oh wait, did we?
No, the Daybells, we've
who's
got
Day-
her cut up. The problem with Lori Daybell and those guys is they didn't do any interviews. I've gone through every one of these possible. If I shared with you, I'll run down a list in a minute what we got. But if you go and look for her, the best you can find is the day her ex-husband was shot and killed. There's body cam footage of her then, and then an interview afterwards. She's now been indicted, if I recall correctly. She's been indicted in some involvement in his murder that day. Her brother, who killed her, is killing. I shouldn't say murder. Her brother, who shot and killed her ex-husband that day, has died since of cancer or something. But she has been indicted, if I recall correctly. And there's video of her being interviewed hours after that happened. So we've got that one cut up already. It's just things just keep popping up. We've looked. One of the things we've been looking at recently is this Disney family killer. Those are horrible cases, and I'd rather just see people who get angry with each other, and we cover those kind of cases versus I hate the ones with children involved, or that kind of stuff is awful.
that's part of why I like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard, is because I don't really care that much.
Right.
As
Don't
bad
care
as
what they
it
do to
sounds.
each other.
Well, no, I mean, in terms of I care, but in the great scheme, comparing it to Chris Watts, comparing to what you're talking about,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
those
horrible.
are real monsters with real consequences.
Yeah.
With those two, it's like, yeah, one was really screwed over, I think, definitely, and it was proved out the case. All that is true, but nobody died.
Right.
And
And not a
there are
child.
factors.
Not a child.
Yeah.
Not a
Oh,
child.
yeah.
That's the
Good
part
point.
that stinks. But those cases, some of those, there's just so much body language in those. And remember, our primary purpose is to show you how to read body language. And what we're trying to get people to see, I say it all the time, body language is not voodoo or magic. Both Scott and I will tell you that the person who tells you I'm 100% right, don't listen to them ever, because they're wrong and they don't know it.
Nobody is. Yeah.
Well, it's interpretive. And by the way, you know what? That would be a good one, because I did this with Peter Hyatt, and I'd love to do it with you guys. I asked Peter Hyatt, have you ever been wrong? And he described a case where he knew that this father had killed the child because the father showed all the deception, showed the deception, the time slips, all this, right? And definitely, but the father did not kill the child. It was actually a stranger who did. Turns out that the father had a heroin habit and was off shooting up. So the father actually was being deceptive, 100% true, but he did not commit the actual crime they were investigating. So I'd love to put it out to you guys, and I'll start with Scott because I know he'll love to brag it. Are there any cases, and don't name names or anything, that you've gotten it completely wrong?
We all have one that got away. And mine is a situation with a psychopath that I totally missed, and I will never get past it. So,
is that why you're fascinated with psychopaths now? Because
I was fascinated with them then. Yeah, I was fascinated
really?
with them then, and this one still got by me. Ended up doing some horrible stuff, and I missed it.
How did he get by you?
Yeah.
Just clever, too flat. He didn't give you enough of a read. I'm curious.
I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention than what I should have been. I mean, it's all my fault. Yeah.
Well, but you also have to realize it's a finite time. Unless you're spending a tremendous amount of time with these guys, I'll give you a great example. You may, in an intelligence interrogation, only talk to a guy for minutes or hours. You don't know who that guy is in that period of time. And we do a pretty good job, for example, with prisoner of war interrogation, where they are cataloged. And I'm going to use words that will make you really uncomfortable for a reason. It should make you uncomfortable. When you get captured as a prisoner of war, you are cataloged. You will get a tag on your uniform that tells me where you're captured, who you're captured with, how you were captured, what kind of weapons and all that kind of stuff you had. And then we treat you very carefully so that every time we move you from one place to the other, we inspect and make sure you've not been injured or any of that kind of stuff. So those guys, it's like that sometimes. So they get minutes to make a decision. So it's easy to make a mistake. It just is. And I'm not going to tell you any of us ever haven't. And the other thing to remember in intelligence interrogation is I'm after finding the bad guy's friends and the bad guy's weapons and that kind of stuff more than I'm trying to get a confession. So intelligence is its own animal because you can be wrong, way wrong. But there's two fail-safes. When you're doing prisoner interrogation, like in prisoners of war, you don't go call in artillery and an airstrike on something a guy told you. You validate it, you verify it through other means, through satellite imagery, through signals, all that. Same thing's true when we talk about court cases. Remember, Scott doesn't put a guy in prison. That's not how it works. Scott digs the information out, gets the guy to admit he did something. That confession may carry heavy weight depending on where you're at. So he only carries one part of that. The other part is all the forensics. And you'll hear us say all the time, we're not the forensics panel. I don't want to know. This case, we get the last big one was, well, Johnny Depp didn't send that message. It was incoming on his text, if you remember that one. And we're like, we don't care. What we saw is what we saw. We saw his body language. And then I read someone else say that he had more than one phone that was back. Don't care. What we cared about is how he's behaving in that. And that's all we got to go on many times.
Okay. And your case, though, Greg, do you have a specific one or nothing you can go into?
Well, no, nothing I really go into. Of course, we've all look, I'm divorced. Apparently I made a bad decision at some point. I made either two of us didn't work out or whatever. So your assessment of people cannot always be 100% on. It's just not going to be. And any person that tells me their assessment's 100% on, I'm suspicious of that person because that means they're not open to realize they've made mistakes in the interrogation room or out of the interrogation room. And it's just, this is part of this business is you got to have a big enough ego to go in and put your will against somebody else's. Scott, you disagree with that?
Yeah, I
so
totally agree with
you
it.
Got to be careful. You got to be really careful because your ego is tied up in it as well. And sometimes you got to be willing to lose. Lena, you have Lena on all the time.
Sure.
Lena Cisco just wrote a book and she talks about trust, the most powerful tool we have in our bag. And I would always say, I look like the kind of guy who could be mean. People all know it. And so I've been a prop many times in my life to get someone to talk to someone else that they trust. And it is a team sport to get the information.
Okay, so let's pivot to the Summer Wells case. How did you get involved? I mean, did you go review the case on your own? I know that kind of tied you in with Dr. Phil, or it seemed to all sort of roll together. But how did you wind up getting with them and getting a chance to do the live interview and recording that?
Scott,
Don got emailed me and asked me if Greg and I could talk to him. He said, "Well, I'll talk to you." And I said, "Well, if I come, Greg's got to come too." And I said, "There's 2 other guys got to come too." He said, "Nope, I just want to I'll talk to you, but if you need to bring Greg, you can do that." But that's it. So that's how we got connected.
Yeah. We met him at a hotel he chose. They chose, and we went up and talked to him. We met him outside. We talked to him before we went in, and then we went in and got mic'd up and everything together and sat and talked to him it was a good long interview.
Yeah, it really was. And there's a lot more on those that we didn't put on before once you sit down with someone, you start interacting with that person that you're going to talk to. It takes a few minutes to get the groove of what's happening. Sure. So you get a baseline. You ask them a lot of questions. You act like you're kind of bored. You
rapport building.
You offer them something, and you build that trust up with them. You talk about their shoes. You talk about whatever. And so there's a lot of that going on before and a lot of that going on after, because a lot of times people are under the impression once you talk to somebody, then that's it. It's over. Boom. You never see them again. Well, what if you have to see them again? What if something comes up and they say, you got to go back and talk to so-and-so? You can't go, oh, geez, I can't do that. That guy hates me now, but
that's what termination is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got to be really, really cool about all that, ending it, which I think we did, and no reason not to, especially with Dawn.
Yep. So let me add to that. When you're talking, what Scott just said, everything we do is a process. I always say, if you get in trouble, get a lawyer, because the process works and we know it works. And when you come in the room, in intelligence interrogation or even confessions, what we do is we say, we'll take control. Number 1, establish control. Number 2, establish ID. Make sure you're talking to the right person. Establish control in my world was sit in that chair right there, put both feet flat on the floor, and don't make any sudden moves. The guards might mistake it for aggression. That might be how you start. And then you ask them to make sure you got the right person. You figure out where they're captured. Or if there's somebody that's, on the criminal side, you figure out you got the right guy. Then you build rapport, and rapport is a powerful thing. And I always say to people, if you think rapport is my buddy, my pal, that's not it. It's a way we transfer information, and it's how we get along. But after that, then we go into this approach phase, the psychology piece, the read method, whatever we're going to use, and we try to get the person talking. We pull information with questions. Then we terminate. And when we terminate, it may be for a short period of time, like, hey, I got to go check something. I'll be right back. Now, remember, boom, but you reinforce what's working every time you walk away from them. And after you're done with the interview, you do that. You always close everything back up so they understand your relationship is still important. And we do it all over the world, all the time, whether it's terrorists, whether it's military guys, whether it's embezzlers, it's all the same process.
On that note, and I know, Greg, you and I have talked about it, and I'm not sure, Scott, I'm sure you're into it because you're the big nerd. You and Chase, it's like a race. Who's more bookish, you or Chase? But Greg introduced me to Hans Scharf, I believe his name is. Yep. And that I feel is similar and in line with what you're saying, right? That you're establishing a relationship with the person to whom you're speaking. And another example is Jim Smith with that colonel. Are you kind of building like, hey, it's us in here, these guys out here need this info. What are we going to do about it?
There are different approaches you can take. Oh, sorry, Greg.
Right. No, go ahead, please.
Okay. There are different approaches. Maybe I've got a lag between me and you guys, I think, because you guys keep breaking up a little bit. So maybe a little bit of a lag in there. Maybe that's why it's getting weird between me and you, Greg. But there are different approaches to that. For example, what I like to do is I like to go in and I always say it's them. I didn't, because I'm not a cop. You know, I go and tell them, like, I'm not a cop or anything. I'm not here to arrest you, put you in jail. Whatever. I'm just here to find out why you did this. You know, they know you did it. There's no question about whether you did it or not. They know you did. So I'm just here to find out, talk to you, and find out why. And that's where I like to jump off from there. So that's usually my setup. So but it really depends on what you're dealing with. And Greg's are a lot different than mine, because Greg doesn't go, I'm just trying to find out why you wanted to blow all these people up. Just want to tell me about, it's just, they know you did.
Well, that's an approach too. I'll tell you, that's a mistake that most people don't understand, is sometimes when you're talking to whatever you want to call a bad guy, I mean, look, people have different ideologies. And if you can't understand their ideology, you can't talk to them. It's just the way it works. So when you're talking to somebody, and I've offended people at agencies when I said, who here can understand the genius behind 9/11? I'm not saying it was a good thing, but the genius for a bunch of guys sitting half world away to come up and carry that out. If you can't understand that, you can't talk to the guy who did it, because all you can do is hear horror, horror, horror. You can't listen to him. You can't stroke his ego at the right time. And a good portion of this, it's all Maslow. I'm the Maslow geek. It's all Maslow. And everything we do, all these techniques, everything John Nolan taught in Confidential with his elicitation book, everything that we taught all these guys is based on trust, belonging, and esteem. And you can knock them down, go and starve them to death. That doesn't get you anywhere. You can re-educate people that way. But if you really want information, you want facts and truthfulness, you really want to make the person feel at odds with self, so that they feel like they need to give you facts, or they're letting themselves down. It's not about me. It's about you. I bond with them, and then they start talking to you. It works really well. You'll be surprised.
Oh, awesome.
It's back to the gaslighting thing, right?
It kind of is. It's like,
it is. It is.
A few super chats here. Madam Von Kook, great name. Yes. Well, I don't know if you guys have heard of Colonel Kurtz. It's a YouTube channel. She's very deep on Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, but she also before that was doing Marilyn Manson, or at the same time, kind of doing both. And Andrea Burkhart, a law tuber or lawyer who hangs out with LawTube, also doing Marilyn Manson, Johnny Depp. And yes, I know them both. I've talked to both, and they both agreed to work with me on it. So I've talked to Colonel Kurtz more recently, but yes, I've talked to both of them. Hi, just finished your review of Amber Heard's interview. Excellent. I agree. They all are. I mean, these guys definitely put it out there. This is a neat piece of information. I'm glad that he put this out there. There were some questions and a lot of statements about a potential quote, a victim being having to testify in a trial. And I believe both Amber Heard and her lawyer have claimed that she was the first victim to have to testify in a trial, and that is actually false. And they pointed out that William Kennedy Smith had his accuser testify, and there was a blue dot over the face. And I looked this up earlier because somebody emailed it. It might have been this. Might have been Wild in Wyoming. And apparently the woman came out later with her identity, and it was, coming from behind the dot. It was like making a deal about that.
Was it criminal or was it a civil case?
I don't know.
Yeah, because criminal cases probably have more protection. Remember, civil cases are dramatically different, as she found out in this thing. So, I mean, you got attorneys who can answer all that better than I can. I'm not pretending to be an attorney, but I know there are different rules, right?
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Scott, when are you going to go back on Kyle Dunnigan?
I don't know. As soon as they ask me, so I get a lot of times they'll ask me to do the after party show, but with all this Amber Heard stuff, I don't know. Hopefully soon.
Well, a lot of stuff's going to be coming with the Baldwin soon, so I hope he's got the Baldwin warmed up. And if you ever talk to your friend, tell him to sell his services as Alec Baldwin on Cameo, and he will have one guaranteed customer.
Man, that guy is so. I think he's actually a comic genius. I really think that guy is. Everybody goes, somebody who's funny, they go, oh, he's a genius. No, they're not. And if they're good at playing guitar or piano or something, they go, that guy's a genius or she's a genius. No, they aren't. But this guy, I'm telling you, I think he's Cal Dunnigan. I think he's a comedy or a comic genius. Brilliant, that guy. It never stops with him. Never. When he started doing Johnny Depp, when he puts that, if anybody doesn't know who Kyle Dunnigan is, go check him out. You got to see this stuff he does on Instagram and on YouTube. Just put in Kyle Dunnigan, Dunnigan. And let me tell you, when he started doing Johnny Depp, the first time he'd done it was when I was on that show with him. And then he put that on. And as it went forward, his voice started getting more and more like Johnny Depp's voice. Not because he was just imitating him more, but
he personifies him.
Having been in the music business, tones of things and timbre of things, I really pay attention to those. And man, he nailed it. It was so weird hearing it go from somebody trying to imitate Johnny Depp to really getting it solid within just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. It was brilliant the way he does that. But he does that with all that stuff. I don't see how he does it. I don't see how. And sometimes when I'm on that show, I don't say anything because I'm just watching. You know, people go, "Why aren't you talking?" It's because I'm doing what they're doing. It's hilarious. I'm just watching it.
That gives me a callback to Norm Macdonald when he was criticizing Alec Baldwin's performance of Donald Trump. And he was saying that a true person doing impersonations has to like the person. He said, because if you're going to be somebody, everybody likes themselves. So the first rule would be, in order to embody them, you need to like yourself to a degree. And interesting observation on that, though.
But narcissism, I always say to people, narcissism is really not self-love. It really isn't. It's aggrandizing to cover up something else. Yeah, it's the ugliest form of not liking self. And so you're trying to cover it up. Yeah. That's how we get through to them. That's how we get through to them, by stroking their egos.
Yeah.
Or poking a pin in it. I think Scott has said.
Oh, yeah. But you stroke their ego to make them, they have to trust you again before you can poke a pin and scrape.
Yeah.
What I always say is make them like you and then rub up against them. Yeah.
You know what? That makes me think of that word we were talking about earlier. Gaslight. Isn't that what you're doing? You're like, look, you love bombing to begin with, and then you kind of poke at it, and then they're like, wait, where's my love?
When I worked SEER, what we taught always was, anytime you're talking to an interrogator, don't believe a word they say, because they use tricks, ruses, and ploys. The guys who came out of Hanoi Hilton, the guys who came out of tiger cages in South Vietnam, that was what they came back and said. It's tricks, ruses, and ploys. All interrogators are doing. If they're friendly, it's a trick. If they're mean, it's a trick. They really don't care about you at all. And it's a business. And it's just, that's the piece to get your head around. The reason the process works is because they're out to get something. Whatever the prize is, whether it's your piece of intelligence, whether it's your confession, whether it's putting you back into play to get somebody else into harm's way, all that stuff is, intelligence is a business.
All right, we got a good hard question here. Madam Van Kook, how do you read body language when someone is insane and believes their own lies? Scott.
Well, if they believe it, then it's going to look true. You know, if you deal with a schizophrenic, they believe they're talking to someone who isn't there, and it looks just like somebody's there. When someone is, I don't know what insane would be, or how you'd categorize it in this situation.
Right.
But that's the perfect example, because if they believe they're seeing that, if that person is schizophrenic, that's something that's going on in their brain that makes them see that or believe that or think something's going on or think somebody's talking about them. So they will say, President Biden came up and slapped me on the back of the head. I'm telling you, man, that's what happened. And you're like, that sounds crazy, but you'll see everything that tells you it's true.
So they're not lying, technically.
Right. So
technically,
you need a social contract. You have to have a social contract for what we do to work. The reason we're looking for symptoms of fight or flight or discomfort, as Joe would call it, all those things, what we're looking for is that they're breaking a social contract. If they believe they're right, it's harder to read. We look for then things like indignation or defiance and that kind of thing. But most body language that we associate with clusters of behavior, I have to feel some remorse or fear that you're going to catch me. It doesn't have to be remorse, but if I'm afraid you're going to catch me, then I start to do things. And that's what we read, are those deviations, because they're feeling that stress. And if you have no social contract, it's hard. That's why torture is not effective. I mean, can you make somebody say something? Yes. But they feel justified when you're beating the crap out of them to lie to you. It's just human nature. They're going to get away with it.
Like,
Is that why
like Greg
psychopaths
always
are hard?
says,
Oh, go ahead.
is what?
I was going to say, is that why psychopaths are so hard? Because they don't care. There is no.
Oh no,
psychopath.
they don't. They have self-preservation instinct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What were you going to say,
Yeah.
Scott?
You have. That's like when you see somebody go, well, let's play a game, and we'll play the 3 lies, 2 lies. Is it 3 lies?
Yeah.
1 lie and the truth, or something. Whatever
2
that
lies
game
and
is.
truth, or something. 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. But okay, well, I went out and walked my dog yesterday, and the other person goes, oh, I drove my car around, and it's a blue car. If you're telling me the truth, that's one. If you're lying to me, who cares? Why would you care if you're lying to me? But if I said, if I catch you lying, then I'm going to put you in this hole over here for 3 weeks, and nobody's going to come and see you. They're going to put water down there, and then they're going to put bread or something in, but that's it for 3 weeks. Do you still want to play? And then when they were talking about it, they'd probably all tell the truth. But the person lying most likely is going to show you a little something, because they're going to be afraid that they're going to have to go sit in that hole for 3 weeks. You have to have something there. There has to be a consequence of being deceptive, because if there isn't one, what are you doing?
You bring up a good
And
point about the race studies,
Right.
or any studies, because there's no consequences. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest problem, I think, Eric. There's all these studies. I will tell you that when I first moved back to Georgia, I just left the Army, and I was talking to a young woman who worked in the stress lab at Emory, and she was telling me all about it. And I said, oh yeah, I've seen that. And I said, look, I've seen, people, their bodies scavenging for calories and protein buildup in their mouth. She's like, no, you haven't. I said, yeah, I worked in a place where the consequences of doing the wrong thing are real. It's not like, hey, I'm going to go in here, you're going to tell me something, and I'm going to get my $50 or my Burger King coupon or whatever you give these participants. It's not the same thing. The people that Scott talks to who've embezzled something have something to lose. The people you're talking to who have committed murders or terrorism, or any of those folks that we talk to there, all those guys have something to lose, freedom. But when it's just a study, you can't reproduce that stress.
Yeah.
All right. Get through these super chats. I know we're running on a hard out. Scott, I know, has got something going down. Michelle, thank goodness, Greg, I need for murders. Okay.
Oh, we got a few marked. If you looked at my list, I've got 70 people there that we'd marked.
Just want to see what you guys say about Tot on the stand.
Oh, yeah. We're not going to cover it here.
Is that your Disney guy?
Yeah, he's
or
cut
whatever?
up. He's cut up already. We got all his videos clipped. So he's going to be a full show.
He's ready to go.
Greg and Scott, can you please do an alien or UFO sighting again? By the way, you did do one with Rich Bears on this channel, folks. So
yep.
If
Go
you
look
search
at that one.
this
That's
channel,
a great one. That's a great one. Yep.
And you might be surprised at the results.
Yep.
Yeah, I was.
But yeah, we're going to do more UFOs and aliens over time. It's just that a lot of people want to see crime. And so we do crime. And once in a while, I want to do a Bigfoot one still. I've got a couple of videos.
Yeah, I know she didn't say Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah. Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's the one thing you missed. We got to get one, man. We need a person who's
I got one ready.
Bigfoot.
I got one ready.
Well,
If you've seen him and you'll come on the show. Yeah,
there you go. Bigfoot's invited. He's invited everywhere. Georgina, thank you so much. You're such a sweetheart. The smartest, most intelligent, most skilled people you meet are the ones who are open to learn from others, who recognize the skills of others and the value of other people. Love you guys. Thank you. Absolutely true.
So kind.
Oh, Georgina's just awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. She's the best. Lipstick and Sawdust channel. That's a pretty cool name. I love that. Love Eric's channel. Regarding the latest BP vid, can you find a video of Amber where you actually see true happiness? I don't know if there is anything out there.
Well, we've a year and a half ago, we did one of her when she was on the stand in the UK, and that was awful. I mean, it was just horrible. It was all angry. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll poke around and look, but yeah, I don't know.
She doesn't seem like she's had a happy life. I mean, I feel like I pile on her sometimes because of what's going on. But if she wasn't caught up in this, I'd be like, leave this poor woman alone. Unfortunately,
she didn't look happy. But
she brings her
some
misery
people are happy.
on others.
some people are happy when they're happiest when they're miserable. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
That could be. Criminal for R, that was me. Yes. Okay. So it was a criminal case for the the accuser. That
I
may
can see
make a
that.
difference. So maybe this was the
I would
first
think.
civil.
Yeah.
Don't know. Kyle does a great Scott Rouse imitation. Scott Mouse, Mr. Mouse.
Have you ever seen? That's the weirdest thing. Did you see him put my face on him?
Yes, I have.
That was
And
bizarre, man.
it's got
That
to
was
be
really
creepy
weird.
when you're being impersonated.
Well, it's really funny because it's just so weird. It's so weird. Like for me, of course, I don't think he sounds like me, but it's so weird to see some. I've never had anybody do that before, and it was just. But what an honor at the same time, because
Yeah.
I think he's a genius. You know,
That's neat. Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah.
It is funny. And you say
Yeah,
he
he's
just
good at
goes
that.
from 0 to 60 like that. He goes from,
yeah, man, yeah. He does this one thing. He does different people, but when he does these, man, when he's doing something where he's not using the face covering stuff. When he breaks into those, he disappears, man. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing because you'll be talking to him and he goes into this. His whole face changes, his voice changes, everything. I swear, it's a different person. It's really, really. And he does a guy named Craig. And when you see him do that, he just disappears into that. I know it's easy to say, he just disappears into it. And I don't understand what's happening. I really don't. But this guy disappears into it. It's almost creepy to see him just turn into that and go, holy, because before it starts, you're just sitting there talking to him. But then
he's kind of bland. He's kind of a bland personality. And I don't mean that meanly, but he's not super.
Well,
what I've seen of him,
I think
doesn't seem.
I think he's a super sensitive person. That's why he takes all that stuff in. That's why he sees all the little things. My brother's really funny, but the only thing you don't want to do is get in a situation where my brother's going to have to say something bad about you, because those guys are, because my brother's in the humor business. You know, he writes TV shows and movies. And so if you say something to him, he can automatically cut you because they already figure out what your weaknesses are when they first start talking to you. Those sensitive people do. They know what they are. They see what they are, and they're ready for it. And so, and what Kyle's doing, he's seeing all these things because I think he's I think he's a shy guy and really sensitive person. So I think those kind of people, that personality type just kind of grabs all that stuff and sees everything. And then he can just use that, turn around, make something out of it and use it. Watch him do Craig's News. It's bizarre. Because it's weird. I don't know. I'll shut up about it. But
Johnny Depp's that way. Actually, Johnny Depp's that way. You could see and absorbing a personality. He's a very talented actor, and it's similar.
Yeah.
And
it's funny when we first started doing it. I like Johnny Depp, and I said that, and people were like, "Well, that'll make you biased." No, I like plenty of people's work that I don't necessarily think are fantastic people, so I can easily separate those two.
I'm a Billy Bob Thornton man. I like Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob can be very good too.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Behavior Repelling guys. Love you, Greg. I'm your biggest fan. So there you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. And Kimberly Fine. Good question. This
so
is
he's
almost
a tough
psychological. But yeah, will you cover BTK? Why self-sabotage after 30 years? Have such a cold confession and then an emotional final statement. It seems unbalanced.
Yeah, I think we thought about doing him, but watching the video of him just doing his matter-of-fact stuff, look, these guys are doing that and playing cat and mouse for a reason. Once they get to a certain point, and you'll have better psychologists on than us. My job is to break bad guys, not to try to put them back together. My job is to get information out of them. But this guy got fed up with the fact they weren't catching him. I mean, I think he liked the notoriety. If you watch him, because when he comes in, he's just plain old. Yeah, I went to the 7-Eleven, then I cut her head. I mean, he's just that calm about it.
Bland.
And it is bland, and it's part of the reason we haven't done his body language in a video. I've got one coming up that I just put together. Scott will tell you appreciate. I call it "Too Dumb to Talk to TV." Because more than one person who went in and said, "Hey," there's a great one where the man says, "They found this woman in the ditch behind my house. It's his mother." That's one example. There's a whole bunch of them that talk to the police, talk to the video, or to the news, and then suddenly they're arrested a few hours later. There's one in Georgia that's very famous. So we'll look at some of those. Sometimes it's just they need that recognition. A lot of these guys they're broken on a lot of levels, not just violent.
It makes total sense. I mean, it's also like, oh, I can't let that person get ahead of me. They're getting better press.
Yep.
But on that note, it's wonderful to have you guys on and
Well, thanks,
bringing me
man.
great press. And folks, if you
Well,
like
we love
this,
coming on here.
they've been on here a bunch of times. There's a lot of stuff in my
Yeah.
catalog. And if you hit subscribe, you may see them again. I have other fantastic people on, and I deeply, deeply appreciate it. So thank you both.
Well, thanks.